Hello and good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. I am Robert Schoenberger, Editor-in-Chief of IndustryWeek, and welcome to Production Pulse, our bi-weekly live stream where we discuss important issues facing the manufacturing world. We have a large panel today because we're discussing one of the great events that we have every year, which is Manufacturing Day, our annual celebration of everything manufacturing and really targeted at bringing young people into operations so to give them a flavor of what life could be if they choose a career in the manufacturing world. Joining me on the panel today, I'll just go around the room in order that I can see everyone. We have Rehana Begg, who is the editor-in-chief of Machine Design, which is one of our partners here at Endeavor Business Media and covers a lot of the actual production machining, what goes into the thought processes behind how those are built. We have Traci Purdum, who is the editor-in-chief of Chemical Processing, so keeps a close eye on those process industries. Geert Lombaerde is our editor-at-large. Here's a great resource for all of us here at Endeavor because he works across a lot of different brands, keeping a close eye on the financial world, and he's also been heavily involved with our Perceptions of Manufacturing survey, Perceptions of the Trade survey, which looks into how parents and their children talk about careers in manufacturing and other technical fields. We also have Andrea Corona, who is the senior editor at Pharma Manufacturing, our publication that looks into the pharmaceutical world. And last but certainly not least is Jen White, who is the director of student engagement at the Manufacturing Institute, which is the educational arm of the National Association of Manufacturers, an independent group within that organization, and they are the organizers of MFG Day. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate having this great panel here.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with you, Jen. If you could tell us a little bit about MFG Day, some of the history and what you're expecting to see this year.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thanks for having me today to even join this conversation. We're really excited, been doing a lot of work for the last several months to really get prepared and get as much involvement as MFG Day as we can. So a little history, Manufacturing Day, or as we call it, MFG Day, was first held in 2012, and it was held on the first Friday in October, and it was really an effort in the Midwest to get students in front of manufacturing to show them what it really looks like. And from there, it's just kind of continued, evolved. And so we're on year 12 now. And the Manufacturing Institute now leads MFG Day. And our goal is really to empower manufacturers and their partners across the country to plan and produce really impactful events for students of all ages. And so while it started primarily with doing tours of manufacturing facilities, it's really evolved now to be encompassing of many different types of events. And I always say there's no one size fits all. You really have to make the event work for the company, the business, the partners, and the target audience especially. And so while we will celebrate National Manufacturing Day tomorrow, October 4th, which is again the first Friday in October when we always celebrate it, that doesn't always work for student groups, for schools to do field trips, or even for the company themselves. And so we will see events happening. Some have already started. We'll see them happen all the way through the month of October into November even. And so the Manufacturing Institute has like a national registry of events. And so our website, mfgday.com, we encourage anyone who is hosting an event to register it through that website so that it appears on that national map. That then allows us to not just show all the great work that's happening all across the map, but it really allows us to better tell the story too of how the manufacturing community really comes together towards this common goal of inspiring the future manufacturing workforce. So tomorrow you're going to see lots of, again, events happening all across the country. Look at social media. We're hoping it's a true social media takeover. And I encourage everyone to post on their own channels, but we'll see lots of proclamations, press releases, stories in the news, spotlights of manufacturers and what they're doing today.
Great. Yeah, it's such an important issue given how big of a challenge the workforce of the future has been for manufacturing for quite some time. And we do surveys, and finding that future workforce, dealing with the rapidly aging workforce that we have now, the number of retirements that most companies are seeing, we have to be prepared. And on that, I'd like to turn things over to Traci, because you've been doing a lot of work over that in the chemical world, looking at the challenges in preparing that next generation workforce. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're 2 articles into a 5-part series that we're doing on Workforce Watch, just for those items that you mentioned, the skilled workforce that's leaving us, the knowledge that's leaving us. And what we're finding is such a struggle to compete with other industries that are kind of poaching our skilled workforce. Jonathan Katz, our executive editor, in his first article in the series, really illustrated that point by stating that, some of these companies are having to reach out to very unskilled labor forces. He mentions, they're grabbing folks from Walmart who were stocking shelves one day, and then the next day they're dealing with hazardous chemicals, and that is just not the best practice to have, but they're struggling to fill those positions. And what we're seeing is that these positions, chemical engineers, you don't get a chemical engineer by accident. You go to school for that, and you're pretty highly ambitious. So the tech industry in Silicon Valley are really kind of poaching who our industry looks to. So bigger companies are trying to combat that with programs of their own, incentives, relocation incentives to get them interested into the companies in the industry, and also diversity aspects. BASF has a great program to work with women in manufacturing and really, promote them in the industry and hopefully keep them longer in these roles. What we're also finding too is the younger workforce wants to just stay for a few years and leave, and that knowledge can never be built up. And so it's just a tough thing all the way around, and automation can maybe help supplement that, but you still need people out there. Operators are no longer just valve turners. They're they're diagnostic. We're looking at them for other things too, their knowledge base. So it's just been a real rough pull in the industry to kind of keep that knowledge, find new talent, and keep them engaged in the workforce.
It's such an issue. We've written a lot about it here at IndustryWeek. We've seen that in a lot of our other publications here at Endeavor. So many businesses having so much trouble finding those skilled people. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Andrea over there in the pharmaceutical world. I mean, it seems like that would be even a bigger challenge, because you're not looking for unskilled labor at all. Generally, you're talking about a lot of people with very advanced qualifications. So what is the pharma world doing to try to address some of these challenges?
Definitely. Well, it was interesting just hearing Traci's perspective, because I think there's a lot of similarities between the chemical and pharmaceutical world in terms of the challenges that drug makers and companies in general are facing to hold on to employees, not only for a couple of years, but just to build these long-lasting relationships. I think in conversations and the general environment seems to point to kind of life sciences oriented language of thinking of the workforce as an ecosystem, as a labor pool, and as a living, breathing organism that needs to be fostered, cultivated, and encouraged. So in doing research about the different initiatives that drug makers are putting forth to reach out to younger workers, I've come across a lot of programs that target students as early as possible. So not just college and graduate programs, but even high school and middle school. And it's interesting because growing up in Puerto Rico, which is a huge biopharmaceutical manufacturing hub, I've actually been participant in some of these programs. And when I was in high school, I participated in a robotics sponsored team that was sponsored by J&J. And so I was 14, 15, and we were going to robotics practices at these sites. And from an early age, exposing students to the possibilities beyond just STEM, because I think with pharmaceuticals, there's this idea at least this is the idea that I had, of going into a STEM career. You were either a researcher or a scientist or a mathematician or an engineer, but there's a whole world of opportunities out there that not every student is aware of. So I think drug makers are trying to build bridges with local communities, local government, students as early as possible to just get them exposed to the possibilities. And it's also a very fruitful and exciting career path for students. I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities in pharmaceuticals, not just from the day-to-day perspective, but also in the larger picture of it all. So there's a general effort to convince students, and rightfully so, that this is meaningful work and this is long-lasting, impacting work, and that it's never too early to start asking questions and start becoming curious about it. And with that, you see initiatives such as summer programs, scholarships, incentives, internships, etc. So I think, like any other industry, the workforce is one of the biggest challenges for pharmaceutical manufacturers, and the efforts don't stop at college. They start as early as possible.
Here, turning over to you, one of the reasons I wanted you on is you've been working on this perceptions of the trades research study. And I found it fascinating that the number of parents who are talking to their kids about going into technical careers, into skilled trades type careers, is going up, but it's not landing in manufacturing necessarily. It's more auto mechanics, airplane mechanics, things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about what the research was showing you?
Yeah. The silver lining is, to Andrea's point about awareness and having conversations early, is that people are open to this. This is an annual report that our colleagues at Endeavor Business Intelligence put together, and they survey 25,000 households that are focused on having discussions about career choices. And asked about trade careers in general, almost 80% of them say they would be extremely likely to recommend a career in general. The catch is, if you ask them about specific careers, the numbers are much lower. And so even the highest ranking one, which is aircraft maintenance, was recommended as extremely likely only by 59%. So there's a 20-point gap from trade careers in general to the highest specific career. And if you're looking at manufacturing specific trades, industrial machinery mechanics, heavy equipment mechanics, welders, they're scoring in the 30s, the low to mid 30s, in terms of being extremely likely to be recommended. So there's a big gap, and it's not unique to manufacturing. It covers electricians, HVAC folks as well. And so there is that gap, but the numbers have come down for the trades individually, but they've gone up, especially since the pandemic, for the trades in general. So the idea of trade work and trade careers is appealing to a lot of families. The rising cost of college probably has a lot to do with that, right? And maybe the awareness of some infrastructure and some of the manufacturing and energy transition investments are making that type of work more appealing, as like there is a career here. It's not a short-term type of work. But getting that into interest in specific trades and specific careers seems to be a real hurdle or a real opportunity. And so it's about telling the stories. It's about getting in front of people, not just the young adults looking to start careers, but also their parents. I talked for the story that I wrote about the report to a Wisconsin manufacturer, and the HR director said, really, we're having conversations with two groups, trying to convince both of them that manufacturing is not what they might understand it to have been in the past. It's not as dirty. It's not as dangerous. It is more high tech, but you're really trying to have those conversations with both generations. So the opportunity is there. The industry just needs to consistently tell a really good story, or perhaps even better stories, and better stories than some of the other industries as well. So there's a real competition, to Traci's point earlier about poaching from not just from low skilled to the higher skilled workers that we're looking for, but even among the higher skilled workers, there's real competition to tell a good story.
Right, Andrea and Traci, you both mentioned that this idea that it's a competition, it's a very wide competition. It's not just going after the kids who would otherwise maybe go into try to become a social media influencer or go into some other field like this. It is a matter of someone who does want to work with their hands. Do they want to be an HVAC mechanic? Do they want to be a car mechanic, an airplane mechanic? Or do they want to come into a factory and work on modern equipment and do all sorts of really interesting things?
One
It's,
quick follow-up on one
yeah.
quick data point, if I can. So EBI talked to folks about 14 specific career options. If you take away the top 3 that scored above 40%, of aircraft maintenance, brick masonry, and trying to remember the other one now, automotive technician. If you take away those 3, the other 11, that extremely likely recommended score averages 33%, which is right where these manufacturing jobs are in terms of that recommendation scale. So everybody is just right there in terms of how attractive they are to people looking for careers. The competition's immense.
So, Rehana, one of the reasons I really wanted you on this call today was to talk about the interesting place where machine designers fit into this, because they're manufacturing machines, so they face the same challenges everyone else does in attracting that workforce. But they also they could be part of the solution. Can you talk a little bit about what the machine designers talk about when they think about how better machine design could influence what careers people pick eventually?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can only second what everyone else is talking about, and that is that there's this gap between new engineering roles created and new engineers entering the market each year, and that difference is quite stark. And I also want to add to what everyone is talking about, and that is the professional struggles greatly with the ability to boost diversity and inclusion as well. And with that goes insufficient training, limited coordination amongst across industries and between industries and educational institutions for that matter. So I could go down a list of things or recent articles that we've been covering based specifically on this topic. But the design engineering or design design engineering environment itself. If I was to focus on interesting ways, the human machine interface that is so important right now to tackle the challenges to bring younger talent and help them to design intuitive machinery. Manufacturers are increasingly focusing on integrating technologies and solutions that simplify using the technology. So you used smartphones as an example, but that's a great example. Companies are adopting AI-driven human-machine interfaces with features like voice commands, gesture-based controls, and personalized user experiences. I don't know where that picture is from, but earlier was last month. Last month, IMTS had a summit that invited, I think, more than 14,000 students that attended that summit, which was pretty amazing. And it tells you that the industry is really doing a lot to do some outreach. To see, the up and coming young students and up and coming engineers to participate. One of the examples that I wanted to highlight, for example, for machine design, is that we picked up a submission from a company called Fictive, and this was an open letter from their CEO. I'll be publishing it tomorrow. It's essentially a piece of mentorship for prospective engineering students, and a shout out to the UC Berkeley Formula Electric project that they sponsor. And the idea is that there are many sponsorship opportunities for those types of programs to bring along and encourage students, engineering students, to participate and get involved in real world examples of how they can apply what they learn. Another, still keeping on the theme of the smartphone, just last month I spent a day at Zebra Technologies and spoke with a lead design engineer on how their internship program, or the summer internship program, involves students, and working with them, giving them that hands-on real-world experience. I'll tell you, Robert, that the day that I spent there was like it was all about non-destructive tests that were being done on scanners, and my 10-year-old self was in awe. So the idea of bringing young people into the work environment is really, really important, and to engage them that way. A smaller company also close to where I live. I'm based in Toronto. Their internship devised a novel system. It was two interns devised a novel system workaround on picking parts, and they developed, I guess, what is called let me look at it. It says. So they improved picking precision using a 2D camera, and showed how they could use a low-cost solution. And we actually published that. So the point I'm making here is that Sky Automation, in this case, went a step further in their internship program by reaching out to us on a media platform to showcase the work that they do, and we picked up on that because it was really aligned with our Workers in Science and Engineering platform on machine design. So all of that said, funding through associations like the American Welding Society, cooperation, collaboration. Everybody needs to work together, because I think that's what it will continue. It's a continued need, and that's what needs to happen in order to help fill that gap.
Yep. It's fascinating, the attitude some people have about some things in the manufacturing world. I mean, such as YouTube and technology and social media, things like this. I profiled a company recently for IndustryWeek, one of the winners of our Best Plants contest, Hoffer Plastics here in the Chicago area. And they had a project there that the entire material handling system for one of the product lines had been set up by an employee. He ordered the autonomous mobile robots to actually ship things around the factory. He programmed the collaborative robots, all these different pieces. And pre-COVID, he was the night supervisor for one of the production lines. He had no automation experience, but he watched YouTube videos. He spent the entire pandemic, he said, glued to his computer watching YouTube videos about how these different systems worked, and came to his bosses and said, "Hey, I think there's something we can do here. Look at all these cool videos of other companies doing something like this." And they gave him some time to get some training and gave him the budget to pick the right systems, and now they have a really effective and efficient and great system for moving these products around. And that's where a lot of these younger workers live. They grew up with social media. They grew up with this ability to go to YouTube for any problem they might want to solve. And that doesn't end with my car's making a funny noise. It can be, this machine at the factory is making a funny noise. They are natively tied to this digital problem-solving world. And if the companies that can tap into that are going to find a really great workforce here, I think.
And to your point, Robert, if I can jump in real quick, I think that it's also crucial to accept and look at the fact that not only our technologies are changing in all the industries, our processes are changing, the workforce is changing. So really understanding this new generation of workers and focusing on what inspires them, what motivates them, what kind of work they want to do is really important too, because that has changed drastically in the last 10 to 20 years. Like you said, this generation has had more tools in their hands than any other generation before. And so the reason that they want to go into a career is driven by different forces. So I think that pharmaceutical companies are also coming into that knowledge and trying to look at the ways in which they can inspire younger workers to want to go into pharmaceutical manufacturing and to focus on their why. Why would I want to pursue this career in manufacturing over any other career? It's no longer about job stability. It's no longer about necessarily compensation. It's more about the meaningful work that they're doing and why it matters to go into this career versus any other career. So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Oh, thank you. That's an excellent point. And on that, I think we are at time today. Thank you so much to this fantastic panel. Jen White from the Manufacturing Institute, Andrea Corona with pharmaceutical manufacturing, Rehana Begg with machine design, Traci Purdum with chemical processing, and Geert Lombaerde with Endeavor Business Media writ large. Thank you so much for your time today. Fantastic discussion. And I look forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks for our next episode of Production Pulse.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Robert.
you.
Manufacturing tomorrow.